Hello and welcome back to the 21st Century Consumer Channel oder auch herzlich willkommen zurück zum Track für die Consumer des 21. Jahrhunderts und den Essern. Ich habe für euch noch eine kleine Info. Es haben sich ein paar Leute für die Workshops angemeldet. Vielleicht gibt es noch die eine oder andere Person, die Lust hat, morgen früh einen Workshop zu belegen. Da könnt ihr gerne im Convention Hub nochmal vorbeischauen unter der Workshop-Rubrik und gucken, ob euch da was gefällt und euch gerne dann eben anmelden über den Hub. Ansonsten bleibt mir nur noch übrig, Sascha Barby, meinen nächsten Gast anzukündigen. Wir freuen uns sehr, dass das geklappt hat. Ganz kurz danach noch eine englische Intro, weil Sascha danach in Englisch weitermachen wird mit seiner Session. Sascha is going to hold a keynote on a topic that is very, very interesting. It's called, like this test session title is called Grab the Bull by the Horn. And he's working for a German company that's called Rational. They're doing kitchen equipment. Is that right, Sascha?
Yeah, we're building combi steamer technology, right? But like in the broader sense, kitchen equipment, right?
Okay, cool. So, and he will talk about like how is the service industry or the service branch maybe going to change in the next 10 years or in the next decade. I'm very happy that you're here. I'll give you the floor, and I'm looking very much forward to your session. Sascha, you have the word.
Okay, so before I start, warm welcome from my side as well. Before we start, I really would like to thank the team of Holy Table for organizing that event, especially now in those times that we have right now, with all the restrictions and so on. We do not have exhibitions, we do not have real conventions. So I think it's really a great idea to do that online and just to foster the idea to get connected via this medium. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for having me here. And let's just dive right in. So if not now, when? So I would like to start with that because a lot of what I will explain during the next half an hour has to do with what we will see in the future and especially how do we cope with those changes. So we tend a little bit as humans always to be more waiting, what's going to happen around us, more being reacting rather than being proactive. So I would like to encourage you to join me in this view. We will have it from, I will start with 2020, going to 25 to 30, and then 2030 onwards. So it's kind of, especially at the 2030s, crystal ball thing. But I would like to give you some ideas, some impressions, how the market actually could look like. So I would like to take it from the consumer's view, because for me and for the company Rational, that is the most important thing, that we have a look, okay, what does the consumer really want and how does he or she perceive life, work, business around him. So the 2020s consumer, he's crystal clear stating, I demand action. I see there are things going wrong. I want you, Foodservice, to change those things. I know what's good for me, so deal with that. And I accept, or I start to accept digital solutions, but there's a big but behind the question digital and as well digitalization. So let's start with an overview, and that will be always like that. I will give a short overview about 2020 to 25. What are for the food service industry interesting points? Like I said, we only have half an hour, so I can only pick a couple of things. Later in the deep dive, we can discuss whatever you want. If you agree, if you don't agree, I'm happy to discuss those topics with you. So we will see now that the generation Y and Z is slowly taking over the labor market in special. So, and this generation is driven by purpose. They are looking for what is work, what is business in future giving to me, rather than just saying, I'm just doing work for finance my private life. So that will change drastically over the next years. And especially will that change because political and social issues, as we can see it right now worldwide, they will start to grow. And the generation that we are looking at now and that will come more and more into sight, they do not agree with that anymore. They want to change things, and they want to change those things at a digital speed. So that will be completely different. And exactly in that kind of topic comes that the food production issue is really on the pillory. So we see that we have scandals. We see that a lot of things that we do when it comes to food consuming and production just is going wrong. Right now we are a little bit more in the just waiting phase of that. So I demand action, but I don't do really anything about it. But that will change over the next years. So how does this new generation actually look like? So me, myself, and I think it's very important to have some words about this generation which is coming up and will influence the food service business massively. A lot of times I hear, or we almost accuse them of being self-centered, egoistic, just looking for their personal benefits. They don't like to work that much anymore like our parents' generation did, or my generation. I'm now 46, but when it comes to those generation, I sometimes already feel a little bit more aged. So they have different values. And just saying that is wrong is kind of funny, because if we look back at us, and ourselves and our parents, so what did we actually change? Which problems did we actually grab and handle those? Like, was it climate change? Was it food production, social issues? So I don't think so. So we should be a little bit more open-minded when it comes to the changes that will be ahead, and be more supportive for this generation, instead of just blaming them and accusing them of doing their thing, because that will be the future. So individualism really strikes back. So you will see that. I will come a little bit later to that, individual approaches, individual offers from the food service industry and other businesses will be vital for your business in the future. So while the traditional structures surely erode, we will see different models and we will see it on the slide when we come to 2030, that society in the future might look completely different. Data right now, like I said, digitalization right now, I would say it's still starting, but what are we going to do with the data? So what is going to happening with any kind of data that I actually share? So am I really still the owner of that? So those questions will raise, while still the digitalization will be a social connector for a lot of people. So that is what they will look at. I would like to touch a little bit based on the food production issue, because that's a big topic in this whole convention. If you have a look at those charts, you see, like, if we would take cattle, the production of cattle as a republic, then we would have China as a real republic, United States as a real republic, and then there would be the republic of cattle when it comes to greenhouse gas emission, which is, if you think about it, just purely nuts. So, but if you would say, hey, but red meat, that is so important for our nutrition, maybe that would look then different. But if you look at the second chart, we see the protein conversion efficiency, which means like how much worth is the protein that we eat with red meat compared to other products. And those are all animal products, what we see right now. But you see, beef is really ranking last. So that's simply ludicrous. Yeah. So what we're doing right now is just like burning resources. And I have to say right now, we are I would say okay with that still, but it's not okay. So we're just waiting. We see like what's going to change in the future when it comes to that. So if we compare now new approaches that we have, and we had the guys from Happy Ocean Food in the convention as well, that is a positive example. It's a young startup. Two guys just saying, okay, we would like to change things. And I would like to show you that example. I could have taken Beyond Meat, but I think it's more important to see something which is just growing right now. They're in the prototype phase, and we have been happy enough to be allowed to test their products and really to try how those vegan shrimps are. And by the way, they're really great. We really have been surprised. We talked to them, we discussed with them, and we asked, okay, what was your idea of creating shrimp? And the funny answer was, they said it was not about the shrimp. we would like to change something. So what they have on the website, save the ocean, make a difference, and create impact, that is something which is important for that generation that shows up now, because they would like to change things for better, even if it sometimes hurts, and even if it's sometimes risky. So I know you might say, shrimp, that's a niche market, not very important, very boring, but just have a look at another example, plant-based milk. If you go to Starbucks, wherever you go, you can ask for plant-based milk. In the beginning, sometimes you have been lucky to get it. Right now, if you ask for plant-based milk, they ask you, what milk do you want? Almond, rice, oat, whatsoever. So a big market. And if you compare that, it's expected by, I have to look at the numbers, by 2024, that in the US, the plant-based milk market will reach a total worth of $21.5 billion US dollars. And it's growing with a CAGR of 10.2%. So you see what kind of power plant-based meats, plant-based products, plant-based milk can realize in the future. So if you look at the food service industry, 2020, there are a couple of points that we need to touch. So the first thing is food production and the alternatives that we have. Are you going to be a first mover? Are you an early adapter? Are you just going with the flow? So just be very aware of what you do, because this is not a threat, and that is very important. You will hear that a couple of times. It's a big chance to jump on that train and to generate business out of offering solutions when it comes to plant-based products. It's growing, yes. There's a good marketing when you look at companies like Beyond Meat, but still compared to the total food market, it's still very small. But I promise it will pick up. And the same individualization. It's not a threat, it's a benefit that you have. And this kind of individual living will be not only on product side, but it will be on the side of the workforce as well, because we need new models here as well. Think about it, get prepared how to do that, and I'm really happy to discuss that later in the deep dive with you. So how do you fit in new living concepts if they emerge? We will see them a little bit later, but how will your service in the food service industry look like in the future? People are still going to the counter, grabbing a tray, getting their food? I will doubt that. I think that is not going to happen. So, but it will be on you to take the lead and think about what are the alternatives that we have. And last but not least, unfortunately, a topic that we will have through all the years. It's a war for talent, a term which is just like in the market. What does it mean? The generation Y and Z, they're looking for a completely different way of working. So for them, it's culture first, identification and very clear values in your business, training and retaining before recruiting, and of course, an employer which really has a brand, not a brand when it comes to nice signs and logos, but it comes to what are the values, what do we stand for, and is that something that I really like to work for? So that will be a very important topic. So if we move on to the 2025 to 2030, it's the consumer is getting a little bit more aware. Yeah, I help you to help me. So I know we need to change something. I'm with you on that train. I'm responsible. And work life is seen as an opportunity. So those things will melt and they will all come together. And last but not least, my data, my benefits. So, hey, if you're using my data, what are you going to do with it? And what is actually my benefit out of this? So we have to discuss that as well. Okay, if we look at it, a term that will appear right now, we talk about transparency. In those years, we will talk about radical transparency. And that means as well supply unchanged. So where are the products coming from? Really from the very beginning. So is the whole production process really sustainable? How is the labor situation for the people producing that? You will be in charge to give answers to that when it comes to your customers. Climate change, we will have that through the whole presentation, very important topic. And the only thing at this time, what I would like to say is, we saw this very interesting initiative, I would say, from Greta, And a lot of people have been mocking at her and saying, you know, just a girl, she should go to school whatsoever, you know, stupid things. But by 2025, you should really feel embarrassed for that if you think that way, because our problems that we have, they will be obvious at this point, and it will be very hard just to discuss them away because we are already too late at that stage to do something. So that should be in your strategy as well. At this time, mass meat consumption will start not to be mainstream anymore. And that simply means people will look at consuming meat in a different way. It's not about not eating meat. It's about like what is the value for us in the future. And as well from the food service industry, do we would like to push every day out crazy amounts of meat, or do we would like to show alternatives and make meat something very special? So that is something that you can put in your strategy as well. Alternate living will emerge. So people will live more in solidarity and self-efficacy. So that means they would like to be more in control of them. They will build up new communal systems that they would like to live in. So family fades out a little bit, still is important, but you will organize with people who share the same values and would like to work with you on issues. And of course, we'll have all the fun that we have as well, but it will be a little bit different. At this point, we are already in the gig economy. So the regular work that we see right now will startly fade away, and we will have more kind of gig work, freelancer work, couple of jobs and so on when we look in the future. Yeah, data ownership, I already touched that, but what is very important is work and life digitalizes completely. It starts to melt, but it will foster loneliness. And if you look at actual studies, they come to the point where they say by 2025 to 2030, loneliness will be a health issue. So it will come up to an epidemic stage where people just get sick because they feel lonely. So how can we deal with that when it comes to food service? So what are ideas that we can help with that issue? So if you look at that at the upper left, the big picture now, you see a community table. So what you see is that people dining together, sharing a meal. So those concepts are already in place. One big pot in the center, maybe not at COVID-19 times, but in the near future again. But dining together, having social room, kind of, yeah, being together, sharing ideas, discussing, having family out of your own family. So that could be an option. Or are we going a little bit more in the direction that we see a little bit below, like from Korea? Yeah, people that are not really able or can't really date other people, they can go to a hot pot restaurant, men on the left, on the right are the women, and you sit there and have your dinner. And if you are open for a conversation, for a meeting, you just can press a button. And if both press the button, this little wall will open up and you can talk with a real human being. Sounds weird to us, but might be an approach for the future as well. On the other hand, how will it look like when we walk into food service businesses in the future? You know that in the very beginning of McDonald's, when I remember the first time I visited a McDonald's, it was like all plastic. It was clean, cold, not very cozy. If you look at Starbucks today, they tried to create like kind of this living room atmosphere in there where you stay and buy coffee, which is crazy expensive, but you do it anyways. So, but if you look at those pictures, that could be something how food service businesses, especially canteens and so on, could look like in the future. Social room, looks a little bit like a living room, warm interior, you can see plants, maybe you even hang out there after work because you have a small apartment that you just can afford in the big hubs. So you stay at work, maybe even over there, have a couple of beers, have some drinks, get some nice burgers, whatever you want. So I think that will change completely. Okay, food service perspective. So what can we make out of that? Keyword is, or the key sentence is, play your advantage. That you should have generated by now. So one option would be join the Meet Once a Week movement. There's no really movement right now, so we're just making it up here, but it would be a good idea. So why not putting meat on food service businesses like canteens, staff canteens, and so on, one time or even maybe 2 times a week on the menu, but then really celebrating it. A good quality, something where people do not have to feel guilty for consuming. So I think that would be a beautiful approach. Co-work for transparency and climate changes. So that is something where we really need to go at. So co-work, so the lines to move something in society, and when it comes to climate change, they will blur, and we really need to cooperate on all levels of production, from the farmer up to the people that actually consume the food. Think about creating weak ties for fighting loneliness. So weak ties is just like kind of a wording coming from Mintel, and then they're saying, okay, work can never or food service can never replace family, but they can create those weak ties. So people can go there if they feel lonely, if they need social company. Yeah, still it's not family, but they have social room. So just think about that. How could you implement that in your strategy for the next years? Brace for impact, hyper individualization. So that sounds quite scary, but it's actually not. So it's all about the personal experience. It's not about, I would like to have my salad with cucumbers instead of tomatoes. That has nothing to do with individualization. But what is good for me? What I really need to be healthy? What is the environment around me? Do I like more to sit on a table, like in a cozy atmosphere where people join? Do I would like to sit alone, you know? So we have to cater those individual interests of the consumers. So this from 2025 on to 2030 will be a topic that we need to talk about. It's like about entertaining as well. So how do I entertain people while they're having, in my operation, a meal or meet friends? Interesting side fact over here. If you look at health insurances, they are thinking about spending until 2025, 8% of their expenditures on digitalized solutions. And just do the math. What could that be? Of course, they will cater the they will really go on the optimization of people. And we shouldn't see that too negative, because it sounds always like they would like to turn us into robots. But maybe they would like to support us in how can I be healthy? How can I eat in a delicious way, but still it's good for me? And I can clearly see in the future that there are programs on health insurances bringing your payments down if you can really prove that you eat at least 3 or 4 times a week healthy, that you do sports and so on. We have already like very little plans of those systems in our businesses, but that will push way more. And like I said, of course, it always sounds like civilian people, you know, that somebody would like to control you, but it's on us to change this, to work with data, and maybe to draw even our benefit out of that. Okay, so we're arriving 2030 till 2035, 40, I don't know. Like I said, this is a little bit crystal balling right now, but consumer will be way more aware at that point. So we are part of your idea. So we would like to participate. You are me, and I help you. So disruption and change, that's us. You know, it will be just normal. Yeah, right now, if you talk about disruption, people freak out. Disruption at this point will be everyday's business. Optimize me in a positive way, and data ownership. So 2030 onwards, what can we expect? Shared facilities and communities and digital tribes shape up. So what is a tribe? So, and I just would like to give you a definition for that. A tribe is an unofficial group of people connecting and share common interests, loosely organized in real life or social media. And that is nothing more than social disruption on grassroots level. So that means those tribes will organize, still having their family, but people will, on a local way more connected. Like we see right now with all the COVID restrictions, you know, we go local, we do holidays local, we maybe eat more local, we stay more with very close friends. So that could be something that we take over the next years and will change over there as well our communities drastically. Again, what does it mean for food service? We will come to that. So climate change unifies. Unfortunately, at this point, and that is a point where I'm not that positive, we are very late, but climate problems, issues start to unify people. But we will see massive change now when it comes to that in fighting those issues. At this point, it's already past the 11th hour, so we have to take action. No matter, the money will not be a question anymore, because with all the money we can't buy what we would lose if we don't stop that. So that will be a very important thing. Good news on the other way, we always talk about individualization and so on. So that will be standard right now. So you do not really have to think about it anymore. And nutrition, like today, sometimes with vegan and vegetarian and paleo and so on, moves from religion to normal. So this will be all incorporated already in your businesses, but a little bit careful, you have to set it up. You need people on board who can drive this change. Yeah, and the next sentence, maybe that's a little bit too much for somebody, but I would state red meat at this point is taboo. Taboo does not mean it's forbidden, but it means people will look at it in a different way. And it will come to something that you really have to value. If we can reach that, we really go far out of what we are right now. Workplaces will adjust for the non-binary future. So we will have to have different kind of workplaces. So office is not dead now, but it will be different. And data ownership and identity fluidity will come into sight. So what means identity fluidity? That means that the borders between your real life outside and the identity that you have created via the digitalization, that will completely blur. So identity fluidity, a very important sentence. You will hear that term, I guess, quite often in the future. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, digitalization, then we talk about robotics as well. So, and I would like to give you one example. And you might find that, a little bit odd, a little bit too much. So we see the company White Castle over here, and they are running right now some stores with a robot. This robot is done by Robotics. And they're actually using this robot and training this robot for something like just doing fries. Yeah, you might say now, good idea, nice, but way too expensive, that never, if I do the math, that never works. But you're a little bit wrong when it comes to that. And I was surprised as well. This robot costs you around $20,000 to $30,000 as an initial investment, and then $1,500 to $2,000 a month. So of course you have an investment, which you would have as well when it comes to training. But if you calculate it like 540 hours a month, 18 hours a day, you're looking at $3.70 per hour to run this robot. And the energy we take out, but just like for the software and everything. So this is not because companies like White Castle would like to replace people, they just don't find labor anymore. That's the biggest issue. And that is the reason why we will see a lot of robotics and automatization in food service in the future. Okay, so finally, the new volatility. So what are we looking right now? We will have those social changes. We have tribes, we have a movement which is hyper-local, social, slightly united, and eager to disrupt for good. And I'm 100% convinced that that will happen. So people will drive for change because simply they have no other chance than doing that. Labor the scarcity of labor is driven by new ideas. Like in Germany right now, we're discussing things like the unconditional basic income. So, but there are other models that we have out there. So what are we doing if a lot of people are replaced by robots and artificial intelligence? What are we doing with those people? So, of course, we have to give them purpose and meaning. And that will be a big discussion for you business as well. So how do you really wait out this, like with being automated, but having qualified staff over there? And how do you keep this stuff? You will see pop-up competition when it comes to food service options. And we already see it now during COVID. So new ideas emerge. You cater actually at home. So maybe the canteen that you're at today at work, they taking care of your meal at home, or you're even taking your family to the canteen to have lunch at dinner. Those models already exist in Silicon Valley. So why not? Why not? Why not solving some issues just by kind of really melting those things together? So, and be ready to guide and lead. And that sounds a little bit weird when I talk about generation Y and Z. There will the digital natives, there will be all individual and so on, but there will be guidance needed. So the people will ask for the lead because you cannot handle everything. And they will expect even more from food service businesses to actually give them ideas, lead in the right way. And that is very important. Lead really in the right way, the thing that people would like to see as well. Some maybe a little bit odd example, Kentucky Fried Chicken did something in Australia and they do full weddings. You could win a full wedding catered by KFC with band, dancing, photo booths, of course, a food truck with Kentucky Fried Chicken, the venue, and so on. Yeah, that was kind of a marketing thing, but just think about it, what that means. I think big companies, big food service companies will go way more into the private sector and take over parts that we usually organize because they just would like to make it easier. Whether you like it or not, it's always your decision, but that could be possible. Another example that we could see, unfortunately now my presentation is, now wait a second, now we're back. So this is the L28 in Tel Aviv. A restaurant, just a normal restaurant, but they merged different concepts together, training people, discussing new approaches, testing vertical gardens on the rooftop to produce hyper-localized produce over there. They are really kind of a, let's say, a melting pot for new ideas when it comes to food service industry. And I think that is something that we will see coming up in the future a lot. Yeah, a lot of information, and 2030 to 2030 upwards in a nutshell. The big two, automatization and digitalization, I don't want to say too much about that. I think we all know that is coming. The question is how you're going to put that in your strategy and how we're going to deal with it. Generation Y and Z are moving forward with a new definition of living, and we all need to get used to that. Again, see it from a positive perspective. They will change way more than we have done over the last 30, 40 years. Individualization on all levels forces a permanent adaptation. That will be the new normal. So it will change constantly, and we will have to adapt to that. Get used to the spotlight, radical transparency. It is a benefit. You will figure that out after a while. With every single dish that you sell a promise to the customer that this dish is produced in a best way, in the best possible way, and is sustainable as good as it could be. So don't be afraid of that. The radical transparency will be the new vegan, which a lot of people always said, oh God, that's crazy. If people eat vegan, but radical transparency, wait for that. That will be even more crazy when you think about vegan being crazy. Identity fluidity and data ownership. My data is my data. If you would like to work with that, what is my benefit? Maybe I can even sell it to you. So that will be total control, like all this kind of under the table data handling will be done by then. And yeah, I have to say, last but not least, climate change. This will be the driving factor over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And I know maybe you can't hear that anymore, but what we see right now, what's going to happening, this is just an article from today from the Spiegel, which is a big German magazine. They doing an article about the fires in California, and they stating the disaster arrived, global warming is showing its face, it's a grimace. So we have to touch that. We have to deal with that issue, and we have to think about how can we handle this climate change, and especially coming you from the food service industry or working in hospitality. We can really do a lot with that. We have to be open. It won't be easy. That is crystal clear, and there will be suffering as well in some ways, and some businesses really getting in problems, but it's a chance. And take it as a chance rather than a threat. It will all move us forward. There are people that are working on that already, so let us support those people in the food service industry as well, rather than pointing at them or just trying to hinder them on doing the right things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sascha. That was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. We're all stunned by the professionality of your presentation and nice flow. We'll go right over to the room, to the Jitsi room, and deep dive, so we can have a discussion. For all the viewers who want to join us, the link is in the YouTube description or in the program. One thing I want to add is we have the unconvention tomorrow, which means if you have any kind of expertise, or if you thought about a topic you would like to introduce and talk about tomorrow, you can do that at the unconvention. You can hand in your offer or your topics until tonight in the evening, and after that you can just bounce around tomorrow and see people and talk about the subjects that you have. That is pretty much everything I wanted to say. Thank you, Sascha, again for the wonderful session. We're closing the track right now, and we'll see you tomorrow or in the Jitsi room in a minute. Bye.